Hi, welcome to the Brief Book Reviews channel, otherwise known as An Old Guy Reviews the Book that he's read this week. What's the old guy read this week? Well, the book I read this week is this one. It's called The Parkwood Murders by author Chris Chibnall. It was published by Michael Joseph as a hardback here in the United Kingdom on the 16th of July 2026. I guess the author is probably best known as a award-winning screenwriter. Some of his credits include things like Broadchurch, Doctor Who, Torchwood, Life on Mars. But this is his second book. His first book, Death at the White Hart, was well received, and in fact I read it and reviewed it on the channel. So this is his second book, and it's the second outing for the central character featured in the first book, Detective Sergeant Nicola Bridge. Nicola had been working, we're told in the first book, she'd been working in major crime in a big city, Liverpool. But her husband, Mike, a fireman, had an affair. To try and save their marriage, they moved back to Nicola's home, rural Dorset. And Mike's got a job as a fireman. She's joined a new force. She struggled with the force, and the force that she's joined is an amalgamation of two others. They've had two chief constables in 3 years. The accommodation isn't brilliant, staffing isn't brilliant, but she thinks it's worth it to save her marriage. One thing that isn't going awfully well is the Nicola and Mike's relationship with their son Ethan. Ethan's been used to living in the big city, and he's not that enamoured with being moved back to rural Dorset. He's 18 years old, and the book kicks off with a bit of a problem where he hasn't rocked up one night, he hasn't turned up. It turns out he's been staying with one of his mates, but that problem they have with Ethan is a sort of side plot throughout the book. So what's happening, I hear you say? Well, Nicola gets a call. There's been a body found in a swimming pool in a local holiday park. The park is called as he says, check-in, the Parkwood Holiday Village, hence the name of the title, The Parkwood Murders. And the strapline more or less tells us what's going on here. It says they came for an escape, but can they escape a killer? So off goes Nicola. She's with her Oppo from the first book, DC Harry Ward, and also involved is the IT guru at the local station, DC Mel Hardman. So those three characters are in the first book, so it's a continuation of that. They find the body in the pool in the splash dome at Parkwood Holiday Village, and obviously they have to close it off. But they got a bit of a dilemma, because a swimming pool is probably the worst place you can find a body, because there's hundreds of people using it every day, hence loads of DNA, loads of fingerprints, and also the water clearly disrupts the DNA. So it's a bit of a problem. So Nicola thinks, I'm going to need some help on this to find out what's going on, because myself, Harry and Mel, we're going to need a uniform to help take witness statements, etc. So she rings her DI, who's not awfully helpful. And he likes to call her Nick, and she doesn't like being called Nick. And she tells him this, and he said, oh, you don't like nicknames, eh? So he sends her some uniform officers, but there's 10 of them, including Nicola, Harry and Mel. So not exactly overstaffed. So she's forced to look at it. There's been a murder. They found a body floating in the pool. At the moment, when the book kicks off, they don't know who it is. And they've got 400 people on site. So it's a real problem of resource and trying to identify, who should be there. Are there any people here that shouldn't be here? So it's a bit of a problem. And Mel, the IT guru, gets stuck into scanning, finding out who's who and who's on site. There are lots of, given that number of people, there are lots of potential suspects. One is the general manager of the Parkwood Dorset Resort, Lindsay Moorfield, who lives and breathes for the Parkwood, because Parkwood's one of these, I suppose it's a Centre Parks type place where it's in a rural, farm, foresty, for want of a better term, location. All the guests stay in lodges. And there's all sorts of activities. There's swimming, there's archery, there's high ropes, there's zip lines, you name it, it's there. So a really good place. And Nicola mentions that she and Mike went to another Parkwood resort, and he's told her, yes, okay, but it's a middle class Butlins, which is I've been to resorts similar to that, and that was my opinion as well. I digress. So Who are the names in the frame? Who could have possibly carried out this murder? First one's Lindsay Moorfield, General Manager of Parkwood, Dorset. Lives and breathes for Parkwood, Dorset, but turns out she's got a bit of a secret. One of the guests, a guy called Connor, married to Emma, got a little girl called Bella. He's very, very nervous. In fact, while they've got the site locked down, he tries to get away. And when being interviewed by the police, he's clearly telling lies as to what he's been up to. So what was he up to when the murder occurred? The murder occurred on the night before Midsummer, day after Midsummer. Sorry, not the night before, the day after Midsummer. And there is a sort of standing stone on the site that's been there for years, and they're wondering if there's some sort of, relationship between the time of the murder and the time of the annual celebration by that stone. But that's just one of the lines of inquiry. There's also a guy called Lee Parker, who's the ropes instructor and zipline instructor, arrogant to the point of extreme, absolutely full of himself, and they wonder, he seems a bit dodgy as well. They also find there's a guy with a drone that's flying his drone all over the village, and they also find that there's a mother of a girl that went missing at the Parkwood Resort 5 years ago, and strangely enough on the same day, on the day after Midsummer. So there's a whole smorgasbord of potential suspects, and that's what makes this a good book, a good murder mystery. So this is a good murder mystery, lots of twists and turns. You don't find out the purpose until right near the end. And it's, apart from the good old murder mystery, we can engage with the characters, Nicola and Mike and their problem with their errant teenage son. We see DC Harry Ward, who was, a bit naive in the first book, but he's growing, and the relationship between him and Nicola is well written, and he's getting bolder and bolder. In fact, he does something really brave in this book. And so that is well written. So we've seen a progression of Harry from being naive and a bit, gung-ho to much more organised and doing a really good job. And Nicola's quite pleased with him. So pleased that they're sort of slung together for hours on end. And Nicola reveals some of the thoughts she's got on her marriage and her son. So apart from the murder mystery side, we have that story developing. And all in all, it's a good murder mystery. I didn't spot the perp till right towards the end. The actual story is 354 pages, so it's another good effort by Chris Chibnall. So I think that's it for this week's brief book review. Thanks for watching. 10/10. Do it again.